the mass deportation policies that Trump was elected on could potentially send people north, or it could reroute fentanyl trafficking and other things coming from the southern border into Canada. What do you make of this warning?
Well, when it comes to migration, I think that people clearly want us to have a strong system. And they want us also to make sure that people are confident that they trust our immigration system. And that's why we decided to lower basically the targets, the immigration targets by 20%. I think that was a really important decision. Actually, also that was highlighted by Trump himself while he was campaigning. At the same time...
But this sounds, Minister, like it could be a surge like Roxham Road, but on a much larger scale, right? So I take the ambassador's words as that.
I hear you. So you're referring to Roxham Road. It was myself and the former Minister of Immigration and, of course, the Prime Minister that work on a deal to make sure that we would have a renewed safe third country agreement, which we were able through that agreement with the U.S. to close the Roxham Road and address this issue. And of course, we'll work with the administration. But we need to bear in mind that, yes, indeed, President-elect Trump has said that migration was a key priority for him. And so therefore, we are ready.
But how are you ready, though? If, for example, all the Haitians who are still there in temporary protected status and during Trump 1 presidency, just the talk of it had people fleeing for the Canadian border. Now he's talking about mass deportations, potentially millions of people. That's going to be an added incentive for people to flee for safety, and they're unlikely to head towards Mexico. I mean, how do you deal with this potential movement of desperate humans if this comes to pass?
So, David, of course, I won't give you the entire plan right now as you're asking me the question, because I think we need to have the first conversations with the Trump administration. We need to understand their concerns. We need to understand their plan, of course, and we will work through the CBSA, which is in charge of our border protection. We'll make sure that indeed this northern border, which has been extremely effective and extremely well guarded because it's the longest and safest border in the world, stays the same. And so we have that in common with the Americans, that we believe that border protection is important. Right. And so, therefore, we'll have these conversations. They may be tough conversations, but I'm never shy of having tough conversations. And I think that Americans expect us to have tough conversations with them, too. That's diplomacy, and that's why diplomacy was actually invented, David.
You know, I don't want to be mean, and I don't want to come across as sexist, but she's dumb, Barbara.
I know. I thought of... I think of her and Kamala Harris on the same kind of level when it comes to foreign affairs.
At least she doesn't have the Kamala Harris cackle. I mean,
that's true.
She was asked about mass deportation. That's a very specific thing. Trump says he wants to get rid of millions of people. And I think he means it this time. I really think he does. I know Elon Musk, his new best friend, certainly means it. And I think the party's unanimous on that. And when he asked her specifically about mass deportations, we know it's going to happen. Someone who knows they're going to be deported, I suppose some of them will self-deport, but many of them will say, Canada will let us hang around forever. It's an unguarded border. They're stupidly generous with their welfare. They don't kick out criminals. Let's go there. That CBC reporter, David Cochran, I think is his name, actually put the question fairly clearly. And what did Jolie said? We have a point system. We're reducing our immigration levels by 20%. That's not even the question. The question.
No, it wasn't. But to give her, to be fair to Jolie, the one thing that she could not possibly do would be to say something that would stir up fear of exactly, people rushing the border, and to say, yes, that's a legitimate fear and we don't know what we're going to do about it. She couldn't possibly say that. So she had to deflect. And I think that was a tough position to be put in because they probably don't have a plan yet. But by the way, do you really think Trump, when he says I'm going to deport millions, that he really means millions? To me, what Trump does is he's like a, the art of the deal kind of thing. Just like he says, I'm going to slap a 10% tariff on everything. Do you think he really means that, or is that like his opening gambit, and then he'll negotiate down? I don't think he's going to deport millions, maybe a million in the end. Over time, I think it'll be done in a way that doesn't have people screaming, "Look, they're putting people in concentration camps." I don't think he would want to set off that kind of a chain reaction. So he says a lot of things that, if he followed through on them exactly as he says them, could be pretty scary propositions. I just don't believe that it's going to be millions. I think it's going to be less, and I think it'll be much more. It won't be all at once. Like, it's not going to be, they're all going to be rounded up on the same day and, put on 5,000 buses or anything like that. So I think we should, knowing Trump as we do, and we know him very well by now, I think we should take it with a grain of salt when he makes these pronouncements. I think
that's
making a point.
That's a wise observation. I mean, he's publicly said this. You're right. In his book, Art of the Deal, he talks about making a shocking offer just to mix things up and to change the whole paradigm. You're right. He does that. But I've also met with a number of people who I believe have been with his sort of deportation squad before, and are expected to get be tapped for that position again. I think they will be. First of all, I think they're going to put in the wall, and they're going to stop the catch and release. So I think they're going to turn off the tap first of all, and I think they will bail it out. But and maybe you're right. Maybe you don't want to say, "Oh my God, we're going to." Maybe Canada doesn't want to announce some new plan because you're right. People will rush in the days or weeks beforehand. But I don't think they have a clue. I think that they believed in their heart of hearts that Kamala Harris, of course, she's going to win. Yeah. I mean, they're so deeply connected with the U.S. Dems, and Kamala Harris in her own way was not just like Melanie Joly, but she was like Justin Trudeau, word salads, bit of a communist.
Yes, a combination. Absolutely. But by the way, I was at a gig on election night early in the evening. I was on a panel, discussing, and one of the panelists was from Leger Polling, and he was giving us some stats here, there, and he gave us the stats on Canadians, who they favored. And it was like remarkable. It was like 60 or 70% for Harris in Canada, as opposed to in the States. It was supposed to be a very close, race. Yeah. In Israel, of course, it was 66% wanted Trump.
Yeah, it's interesting by country. I saw a chart of that today. Some of the Scandinavian countries, it's like 95% against Trump, and that goes to your media diet. If all you consume are CNN, New York Times, and if you and for diversity, you go to MSNBC and the Washington Post. Oh, I have multiple sources. If that's how you base the world, you do think he's a rapist, a felon. You do think he actually said Liz Cheney should be shot. You believe all the hoaxes. And if, garbage in, garbage out, if that's all you know about this man. And I have to say, one of the little pleasures I had on Tuesday night, Barbara, was following the Twitter accounts of Canadian pundits who, were going through performative emotionalizing. But I think what they really revealed is how little they knew about real life America. Yeah. And because they looked through the prism of the Washington Post and New York Times and thought themselves very, very worldly and thougher. And
that was the Wall Street Journal's opinion. Their editorial today was, or their reportage of the election was, the big observation they made was that they never understood small town America. They never understood rural people's feelings. Trump went to counties they never even heard of and listened and talked to these people. They really are in a bubble. The Dems are really in their own salons, highly educated, all from the top universities, and they just they are not in touch with a huge swath of the American public, and that and to their credit, a lot of them, I noticed there were. I was on Twitter too today on X, and was it Scott Jennings of CNN?
Oh, he was excellent.
Very forthright. He said, "We we are to blame. We have not listened. We have not, done our job. We have not done our job." And I thought, well, good for you. That's CNN, which nothing more mainstream than that. So
this is a mandate. He's won the national popular vote for the first time for a Republican for the first time since 2004. This is a big deal. This isn't backing into the office. This is a mandate to do what you said you were going to do. Get the economy working again for regular working class Americans, fix immigration, try to get crime under control, try to reduce the chaos in the world. This is a mandate from the American people to do that. I think I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids, and they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives. I also feel like this election, as we sit here and pour over this tonight, is something of an indictment of the political information complex. I mean, we've been sitting around here for the last couple of weeks, and the story that was portrayed was not true. I mean, we were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats. Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line. And we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they were barely able to tread water at best. That was the fundamentals of the election. And so I think that both parties should always look at the results of an election and figure out what went right and what went wrong. But I think for all of us who cover elections and talk about elections and do this on a day-to-day basis, we have to figure out how to understand, talk to, and listen to the half of the country that rose up tonight and said, we've had enough.